Good morning, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Bryant Francis. I am a contributing editor at Gamasutra.com. As always, I am invisible. I cannot be seen. I can only be heard. I can only be found whispering into the void. I am here today with an interesting game that is sitting on my friend's shelf, but I haven't played it in person yet. It's called Scythe. Scythe is normally found as a board game that you can, perhaps if you were to stop by a place like Game House in LA, where you might play with some friends and enjoy some coffee, you would play it in person with tokens. Alex, I'm told that's your favorite kind of game, right? If it's got wood and cardboard and all kinds of tactile things you can feel.
No. I mean, I wish.
Oh, that's not your
I
favorite?
wish. No. I have a lot of friends who are into that, though. And luckily, we are joined by two very special guests today who are going to tell us all about their work in bringing a game like that to a digital format. Very special guests. Can you tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Uh, Can I start, Adam?
Yeah, go on.
Me? Okay. Yeah, so I'm the main developer, guess, for the team. So I do most of the technical stuff, but yeah, of course, there is like the whole team of other developers also. So it's not only me, but yeah, I kind of manage all of that. And yeah, I guess yeah.
I guess also we should Martin.
Yes.
We should get your name too. We should
Yeah,
know who
and
you are.
my name is Marcin, but also go by the nickname Koshik. That might be also easier for you to spell. Yeah.
And Adam, who are
Okay.
you and what do you do?
I don't have any fancy nickname. Just call me Adam. So I'm the producer from the side of the Knights of Unity, who are the company who is developing Scythe Digital Edition, and I'm also managing some visual effects in the site, and that's probably all.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you are both with developer Knights of Unity, right? The
Yeah.
Knights of Unity, I should say.
Right.
That's correct.
And you're based out of Poland, working on behalf of Asmodee Digital, right?
Yeah, that's right. The Asmodee Digital is the publisher of Scythe Digital Edition.
Right on. And just before I'm sitting here in a moment trying to figure out all this information that is popping up on screen because I've only played a few games. Would you mind just introducing us to when you first learned about Scythe, the board game, and how you wound up working on the digital version of a tabletop game?
Oh, it was a few years ago when Scythe got its Kickstarter campaign, and while we saw that it was a huge success, we just called Jamie, the author of the board game, and then but he was in that time he was very busy managing the whole campaign, and about half year later. We spoke together and decided to go on with the digital edition. And about 1 year after the development started, we managed to have Asmodee Digital as a publisher.
Nice. Maybe if you can, just for the folks of us, can you tell me a bit about about the Noble Order of the Knights of Unity and sort of how the studio got started and sort of what you worked on in the past? Because this is the first game to bring your studio to my notice, and I'm just curious to know how you came to be working together and how the studio got started.
Oh, so it's not the first game that we managed to produce, because the Knights of Unity is a software house, and we are making games for the for other companies, but almost all of our work is under NDA and it's white labeled. So probably you had already chance to play the games that we have developed, but you will never know which ones there were.
That's so interesting. I've never heard someone use the phrase white label. Do you mean that you've worked on projects where they just didn't show your studio's name in the credits, or it was a small part of a larger thing?
Yeah, it's something like that. We had already made about 80 games, or smaller or bigger. Some were mobile, some were virtual reality or AR games, or even we had help with developing MMORPG. But I cannot say which ones they are.
No, fair enough. I mean, certainly lots of studios keep their lights on by doing contract work and helping out on other projects that they can't or don't want to talk about too much. I wonder, can you tell me if you've ever worked on sort of translating a tabletop game, a board game, a physical game into a digital space like this, or is this your first time?
So for the company itself, it's our first time, but our developers have some experience in that field from previous experience. I think that Koshi can tell something about that.
Well, okay. So the closest I were to translating a board game to digital was actually my first game. Well, the first game that I actually published, that was the pool game. So the 8-ball pool. You know what I'm talking about, right? The billiard.
Yeah, billiards, pool, of course, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, this is actually how my adventure with game dev started. So okay, to give a bit of my background, I haven't started like the Unity. Actually, this project joined us before. I was working 7 years for Microsoft in Copenhagen. Then I did this full game after hours and decided that game dev is something that I want to do for the rest of my life. So I came back to Poland, started doing also small projects, and then we actually met at the university with. Actually, I met with Peter, the CEO of the company, and then we started working on this project. So
nice. Yeah, so something that really strikes me, I think there's the foundation of our conversation around this game is that it is so faithful to the tabletop game. And I haven't actually seen this. I'm watching Bryant play it for the first time, and when I imagined what this would be, I thought it might be a little different, like a little more video gamey, a little more about menus and stuff, and less about moving pieces around a board, which may have been foolish. So I'm so curious to know, like, why did you try to keep this implementation so close to the actual experience of playing a game on a board, rather than trying to sort of adapt it to a more streamlined strategy game?
So it's it's a really hard question to answer, but it was from the design purposes because most of the player base that we would be the players from the original board game. And even when we tried to make even little changes to the original board game, like we exchanged the combat cards with the ammo, and many potential players said that it was a horrible move. So it is the one reason, and. The other thing is that the site I think, maybe it's my personal opinion, that it is very well known because of the graphics, the Jakub Ruralski graphics, that he made the whole illustrations and the map, and maybe that many people that would buy Scythe Digital would consider buying only if there would be an Jakub Ruralski art, not our own creations. But on the other hand, there were plans to make Scythe Digital more like 3D strategy game look. We are thinking about it to make it as an option, to make it, let's say, look like more like Civilization games. But right now we are gathering feedback from players, and let's say we are considering it as an option in the future. But we really don't. I don't want to say that it will change its look so much.
Yeah, this is going to be a really dumb question, but forgive me, it's early here. I'm so curious to know, you mentioned the work of the artist on this game, whose name I'm not going to pronounce because I don't have it in front of me and I'm going to get it wrong, but I'm going to call him Jacob. And, you know, how did you work with the original creators of the game to try and recreate this version? Like, did you get art from him? Did you actually get physical pieces and try to model each piece by hand in the same way, or like how did you go about working with the tabletop team to try and incorporate those assets into your game?
I think that it was rather simple because most of the models were actually digitalized already when we started to when we started to work on the digital version. But some of them, like mech models, are our own. At first, we were thinking about giving some animations to them, but for right now, we would like to make it more static, like real figures. Maybe it will change into the future. And regarding the whole art, to the illustrations, there were straight incorporated from the board game. It wasn't.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I should say, now's a good time to remind everyone watching in chat, since it is very early in the morning here. We are here to take your questions. If you have any questions for the dev team, please put them in chat. We especially love questions that are all about the business of making games, the art of making games. So if you have any questions of that nature, please share them. There is a good question here from SatchiStat, who wants to know, having played Scythe on Tabletop Simulator with their brother recently, what is different about this game than the version that is on Tabletop Simulator? I think that's an interesting question. You know, there is this weird world of sort of 3D board game play that you are competing with, and so I wonder, like, what sets this game apart from other examples of it like that? Which is a weird example now that I think about it, but.
Okay. So first of all, like, you have all the rules implemented here. So you don't need to discuss with the other players whether I can move this piece here or there.
Yeah.
You have everything in here. Second, you also have the AI that you can play against. So, for example, if you're not a very social person, you can just play against the computer, or if you want to increase your skill. Yeah. And well, you might also notice that we are also working on many graphical customizations, and like now you can see on the screen the encounter card. So the flow is well, should be easier in our version than on the tabletop, and I guess we also have more detailed, well, more polishes to the graphics and model. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it raises a question of maybe we could talk a bit about AI design in tabletop games. I wonder how you think about designing interesting, challenging AI opponents for a game like this, and how you go about coding them that might be different than a different game.
Okay, so actually, before this game, I also worked on AI for the Brass game. So I had an opportunity to actually try this work before. And well, the approach is that okay, the difference is that the Brass is a symmetric game, so all the players are the same. Here that they are asymmetric, so each faction has different skills, and they also implement different strategies. So it is actually more challenging here. And yeah, so the approach is that we have a set of rules.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you have a certain situation on the board, then you trigger a set of rules, and you find which one has the biggest priority. And the way I develop them is that I play a game against AI, and I see if there is an situation that I could improve, that they could play better. And then I add the rule, like, hey, if you end up in this situation, let's say you have an enemy which is very weak and which you can attack and get a star, then go forward and do it. And what I think is also a bit special, that is I have a separate project which I call AI Arena. So each time I add a new role, I play a simulation of 1,000 games. And each game is like less than 1 second, so it goes really fast.
Wow.
And actually see if this role improves the overall statistics. So yeah, it's quite fun to see how sometimes small modifications change the outcome and the ratio of one game. Well, in the future, I hope to also try some machine learning on that, but well, it's probably even more fun, but it's also higher risk investment. So now we do our best with
definitely. When I think about implementing machine learning, I think fun. I think that's fun is number one. What I think. Brian, we sort of trampled over a question from you earlier. Did you have something you wanted to squeeze in? I'm sorry about that.
I was briefly. I think if anything, I was just trying to jump in and ask the chat to ask questions. I think it's worth asking because the UI for this game. I mean this with all the love in the world as someone trying to learn it. It isn't 100% like I didn't know what I was looking at first when I started playing, but now that I am playing, I'm getting more and more able to grok that like each of these buttons down here doesn't tell me the name of the move unless I mouse over it, but what it does do is it tells me. Sorry, I forgot to keep their faces on stream there. It does tell me like it sort of tells me all the actions, like all the resources related to the moves. Can you just talk to me about designing this UI and trying to help players understand this game, even if they've only played the tabletop game once or twice?
Adam, me.
Okay, so the designing of the UI for the sites wasn't really easy for us, because when you play such complicated board game, every player has their own faction and player mat, and there are popularity tracks on the board, and when you put this everything into the digital, you need to show it somewhere. And right now we decided to put the player mat into the bottom bar. So what you see through the whole game is compressed player mat from the board game. We had to manage somehow to see the whole board and every information that could be useful during the game. Of course, some stats are hidden. So if you need to, for example, now you're looking at recruitment bonuses that you can take. But all in all, the players who are would like to see the old player mats should be happy with the next updates, because we are going to implement also the expandable mats that will look like in the original board game. And what is more, during the implementation, we realized that despite showing the whole stats that are in the original board game, we should also show something more, like the log of actions that you have on your left side of the screen, and during the online mode that will come in the next update, there will be also a chat on the right side, and there is also a panel that shows the calculations for the players that at the end of each play was a little nightmare for me to calculate all those stuff. So here the game that does it for you. So the placing it in the way that would be useful for players was really hard, because even when you are making your own game, sometimes there would be a wise design choice to just throw away some of the game rules, because there would be hard to just show the players that some rules exist. But during this development, we didn't have a chance to do that, because we needed to put everything one-to-one to the digital version.
Yeah, I mean, that raises a question: why go with early access for the launch? I mean, the board game has been out, and so I'm sort of curious, if it wasn't about sort of trying to hone the rule set or anything, what was valuable to you about having your game up early?
So I think the biggest advantage of the early access is the feedback from the players. It's it was such complicated task to figure out which interface design would be best, and now when we came to the point when we and our testers, internal testers, would came with an ideas what can be improved, and we have implemented most of them. I think that now having a player base that would feedback our work would and is probably the best thing to do now to have a new ideas how to improve stuff.
Nice. There's another fun question in chat here from StatuStat. They want to know, do you intend to build more digital versions of board games? If so, which ones would you really like to build?
Okay, I'm not sure how much we can reveal.
No pressure.
Yeah, I don't think that
Okay.
we'll be able to say something about that, but let's say for now that we are thinking about the other titles. I cannot say which ones, but I would say that having an experience from the Scythe digital edition, I think that we'll make some good titles, and we'll try our best to give the players the best experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that makes me wonder. You know, this is the first game on Steam that has had the Knights of Unity name attached to it. So, despite your experience all around, I wonder: do you plan to continue? Are you excited to continue making games under that name going forward, or do you think you're going to continue to sort of bounce around and do contract work and white label work and that kind of thing?
Okay, I can say that it's not the last game that we are going to give to the players. So I don't know if this year we will give give something to the world, but we are planning to release at least one title next year. So we'll also reach you out with that one.
Yeah, I wonder if you could tell me a little more about how you work. I mean, I don't actually know, like, how many people do you count as being working at the Knights of Unity, and like how, you know, is it all remote? Do you have an office somewhere? Do you guys all share space? Like, how does it actually work as a business?
Oh, so I think that right now it's about 50 people. Some of them are working remotely, but most of them are working at our office in Wrocław. The next week we are moving to the bigger one, so everything goes fine, I think.
Nice.
and already we've gained a lot of experience during the development of games for others. So now we will use that to make our own games, and I hope that one day we will most of our cash flow will come from our own products.
Yeah, is that you sound excited about it. I recently talked to some devs who are less excited about it and who are more appreciative of contract work at a time when, at least in their opinion, it can be a little scary to put new games out on a market like Steam or on the PS4 because there are so many games in the market. And, you know, like a side effect of that incredible plenty is that there are a lot of contract work gigs to do. And that can sometimes be safer because you don't have to worry about actually selling copies, you know, like you can just do your deals. So I wonder, how do you think about that challenge of discoverability in 2018 and sort of getting this game in front of people who will enjoy it the most?
That's a hard question. We are not worried about that because the main reason why we started to make contracts with other studios is that it's as you said, it's a rather safe business. And right now we have a team experience and a lot of ideas to go with our own games. So I think that from time to time we can try to release something on our own. say, let's maybe it will be a big or smaller success. When it's let's call it when we with one of our titles, even if it will be a failure, we can always go back to the contract work. So we are not worried about that. We don't want to put the whole team to the one product and then let's gamble if it will be a success or not. We'll just want to let's call it let's just make it safe.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's hard out there. Any way you can do it that works for you is a good way to do it. There are a lot of good questions here in chat from StatuStat. I'm just going to pick one here. They want to know, do you have a tutorial? Did you design a tutorial specifically for this digital version of the game? And if so, how did that work?
You want? Okay. So
Kashi, go on.
Okay. So yes, there is a tutorial, and it actually was. I think after the UI that you asked, that was probably the second toughest part to nail down.
How come?
Because there were many things. So
Sure.
one that you noticed was that the UI is quite complex. There are many things there, and also the game itself is. I noticed it after explaining it to many of my friends that there are like a lot of small mechanics in it. So each of those actions on the map needs a separate explanation. But each of them is actually it's not that hard. So but you need to go through every single of them, explain. And then it eventually, after you try it out, it clicks and it starts making sense. So the challenge was to actually show that in the tutorial and show the UI, and we were also having a few iterations about the approach. Should it be some kind of campaign with a story and everything, or should it be rather small pieces of information that you just throw at the user, let the player think it through, and then get the next piece. So yeah, we had a few iterations. Actually, in the update today or tomorrow, you can expect some improvements to the tutorial. We also get feedback from community, which was also helpful.
Nice.
So,
Brian, did you find that tutorial? I'm so sorry.
Sorry?
Alex, you're just great. Just walking all over people like a giant mech.
Yeah,
storming over the fields of Eastern Europe.
I apologize.
I'm gonna weigh in really quick. I've got someone from Asmodee Digital pinging me just to let everyone know that Terraforming Mars will be the next game from Asmodee Digital that is going to be digital.
I thought you were saying someone pinging me and saying this is to remind everyone this is my first time playing and this is not actually what it looks like to play this video
I'm sorry.
game.
Do you have a problem with the way I'm playing?
No, you're doing great.
Do you have a problem?
You're doing better than me.
Can't figure out how to add more villagers. It makes me sad.
It's
okay. Speaking of that tutorial, I actually did find that tutorial really helpful. I don't really have anything to add on the tutorial front. What I would like to ask, someone once said to me that tabletop games are software running on human hardware, and they're developed with humans as sort of the computers running them. What's the biggest what did you find in trying to get a tabletop game running on actual hardware was the biggest challenge, like compared to that sort of having that squishy human brain on hand to handle stuff? What was the big difference there? I don't think you guys have done tabletop games, so this may be a bad question, but I just like that quote a lot and wanted to see if I could work it in.
It's a very good question. Okay, if Adam, you have any ideas, just jump in. But for me, I guess it was actually not that much of the hardware change, but the change of the physical world and digital. So, okay, one of the examples, when you have a real board and you have a real like 3D pieces on it, in the real world, you can perceive that, so you can see which is where. Even if the board has many details, you can see the 3D pieces on it. If you put everything on the screen, like here, it also somehow flattens out. So we, for example, needed to dedicate some work to actually make those pieces visible on the background of so many details. So that was it. The other, actually, one that might be more answering this is also the rules that we talked about. For example, when you play a real physical game, most of the people are used to go through some text descriptions, through the instructions, several pages usually, and there are several pages here. And when people play digital games, they don't want to read the wall of text. So one of the challenge, and we are actually still working on that, is how to translate all this game language, maybe from the text to some diagrams and icons that we can show how each action works. So it's, well, on one side it's a challenge, but there are also many opportunities that the digital world gives.
There you go.
Okay. One more thing that is still on my mind is how to. In the real game, you have this all interhuman interaction, and it's this dynamic, and it's also important part. And we are still well. In the online version, you have the chat that you can exchange the information, but we're certainly going to explore more ways how to put that dynamic from the real world to the digital and online mode. And I'll maybe like to show all those emotions and so on. But that's something for the future.
Huh. Yeah, that sounds remarkable. I wonder, how do you think about making your own original games? And certainly we're here to talk about this game, but I'm so curious to know, where it sits in your overall plans as developers. And so I wonder, do you ever think about not making contract work or even licensed adaptations, but just your own games? And what are the challenges that sort of make a game like this more appealing in many ways than trying to make your own game?
Okay, so before Adam talks, I hope that made sense.
Okay,
all right.
The easier part here was that we already had the whole set of rules, and we just had to implement that. But during the development of our own titles, there is also a phase when we are just prototyping everything, and I think that it took sometimes half of a year just to prototype the whole ideas that will be in the final game. But for the few months we are just throwing some random stuff to the game, and then we are just throwing it away when it's not working properly. And I think that's the biggest biggest difference between the development of Scythe and our own titles. But what we see from our experience and experience of our clients, let's say, that it is the most important part, I think, to make the prototype that is playing just right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I wonder, if you don't mind, could you tell us a bit about the game dev scene in your local area? Like, I'm always curious, whenever we have the opportunity to talk to folks who are in a different time zone, I always want to know, like, what is it like where you are? Like, is game development big? Is it mostly indie focused? Is it mostly commercial? Like, is there a meetup? Like, how is your scene like?
It's awesome. You want to start, Adam?
Okay, so in our city, Wrocław, there are few big companies. Like it's we have here Techland. It has their main offices. There is also a new external studio of CD Projekt Red, and there are about, I think, 4 other companies that hire more than 50 people that are almost in the mobile games.
Yeah.
And there are also a few smaller studios that are also probably mobile games. So the competition here is quite big, but there are also many students in Wrocław, because it's a city with a lot of universities. So there's a lot of fresh blood for these companies, and that's, I think, the main opportunity of having a company here.
Nice.
What is also really cool, and I don't expect from coming to Wrocław, there are like regular meetings of people. So, for example, there is a monthly meeting of Wrocław Game Dev, which is usually in a pub, and there are like people speaking about their experiences, and like each month there's a different theme. And there are like grill parties. There are usually on each of the university. Almost each of them has their own club where you can. So for example, this is how I met the Knights of Unity. I just went to one of those meetings. I just wanted to show my project and ask for opinions. And it happened to be also. That's like some of the Knights representatives were there.
Nice.
But for example, like each of those universities offer different perspectives. So for example, you have the University of Technology, which is more focused on algorithmics and a bit of design. There is the art school, which is all about graphics and so on. So if you just show up, you can really get a lot of knowledge, and it's for free, and also meet with the people, exchange the ideas. So it's all like living thing.
And we cannot also forget about the game jams. Because in Wrocław we have about I don't know, let's say 2 big game jams during the year, and many smaller. And I think that in Poland there are, I think that every month there is a big game jam for over 100 people. I think that there are at least 2 every month, let's say, and we are many times we are going from the city to city to join them.
Nice. That's fantastic. I'd love to get out there and see it sometime. We are sort of coming down to the final quarter of our hour here, so if anyone has any burning questions they want to get out, please drop them in chat. I'm going to circle back to another good one that StatueStat drops in earlier, which was very simple, which is just what are your favorite board games? And that's a fun one. So tell me, obviously, the Scythe must be one of your favorite board games because you made a whole version of it. But what are some of your other favorite board games and why?
Favorite board game?
I'll start. I like chess because chess is easy and everybody knows how to play it.
I like X-Wing miniatures.
I heard that about you.
I don't think I mentioned that before.
Okay, well, my of course Scythe, but also Neuroshima Hex by Michał Aracz.
Sure.
it's well, it's quite simple rules, but I think in some ways it is a bit similar to chess. It's all about the placement and there is some luck also.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, so I think I don't know if it's my favorite, but recently I've played Letters from Whitechapel. It's about killing. That one player is a murderer, and he's trying to escape from the policeman, and they don't know where the. We have victory.
Nice.
During the. So it's about running away from the other players and getting into the mind of the murderer. That was really good recently.
So Adam probably won't tell you, but he and his team actually made a game based on that theme on one of the game jams. So you can actually try it in the first FPS perspective.
That's cool.
That's really cool.
Right, you won. Congratulations.
No, I lost. That's the opposite of winning.
Oh, sorry.
So
it's fine. I saw a lot of what I did wrong. I understand more. Like, I'm glad I finished a game. I'm sad that my first full game had to be on stream so that you all could just watch me lose. I will quickly just boot up another one to finish this out today. But I will point out that well, hey, here I am. I'm playing Polania. Scythe is set in Eastern Europe. It has this alternate history, Eastern European fantasy going on alongside this very intricate design scheme. As game developers, how does it feel to sort of work with subject matter that's a little close to home, even if close to home in this case involves bear cavalry?
That one is, let's say, the most the real part of the game, but because during the World War we had a real brown bear in the troops of Poland, and he was really called Wojtek, and he was the inspiration for this one. So this bear is let's say a historical character. But all in all, we really feel really familiar with the setting, and I think that the team really felt that we know a lot of history between our country and our neighbors. So that was really fun to see it from the more let's say fantasy perspective.
It was also very motivating, I would say, like to see the national colors and so on. I guess that gave us like this extra kick to actually stay on the project and make those things more polished and so on.
Yeah, for sure. Something we didn't talk about that is sort of embarrassing because we so often do is what was the hardest part? I mean, this seems relatively straightforward. You have a set of rules, you have art, you just need to produce it in a way that's approachable from a digital perspective. But and putting this together, what was the most challenging aspect of getting it all to work and run effectively?
I think we actually touched most of that, like the UI, like putting all this information and arranging as clearly as possible. I think the weight was more on the UX side, at least from my perspective, because from like the algorithmics and the codes, I think it was easier. Like once you have a set of rules, you just go and implement it, and it's easier than if we would have like evolving game that we prototype, try different approaches and so on. Well, of course we had several iterations here as well, but it was easier. I think the UX part, yeah, and, UI and interactions.
Sure.
From my perspective, despite the, as you said, UX and UI, putting it all together, I think that there were two things. Maybe it was the tutorial part, and we are still wondering how to make it better and better. And there was also, I think that's quite challenging, was to make an AI for the site, because we couldn't make it like it was from the Automa version of the board game, because it had the different rules than the other players, and we had to think on our own how to implement that from the ground.
How did you do that? This is a really simple question to a very complicated topic, and we only have 8 minutes. But I'm just curious, how do you design an AI opponent that can compete in a game like this at different levels?
So actually, you need to become a master. Because every time you want to make the algorithm better, you need to outsmart it first, and this requires you to get better and better. What also helped was the internet. There is if you look on Board Game Geek, I believe, each faction has its own dedicated site which tells you what kind of strategy works best, what should you start with, and then where to put your attention, and so on. So it gives some overall outline what works fine. So there were some new things that I learned from there. There were some that confirmed my own observations, but it was good source. And
nice.
Yeah, and the rest is just as I said, just playing one game after another and trying to be smarter than the code each time. And at this point we have the easy and the medium opponent. So we are still working on the hard one, and I guess it will be the most challenging part, but also most fun.
Nice. Brian, are you still playing the same people, or are you the bear people now?
No, I've been before I was Crimea, now I'm Polania.
Oh.
And yes, we did, just after I talked about Bear Cavalry, I did get the Bear Cavalry card.
Nice.
It's kind of a good moment. Looks like StatGstat is having a good time in chat. If you have any last minute questions, we are happy to get them in. Quick shout out to Asmodee Digital. Thank you for hosting the stream at your end. We think Scythe is really cool, and we're glad you all joined us today. I'm going to toss one last question in. When adapting this game, how come you went for a very literal thing that looks like the tabletop game as opposed to making something that would look more video gamey or digital, like a 4X strategy game?
Hard.
The answer may literally be that Asmodee asked you to do it, but
Koshu, can you help me with that?
Well, okay. So yeah, we actually, if you look over internet, you can find some old screenshots. So we explored different approaches, and one of those was mentioned here, that first we wanted to make something faithful to the original game, of course with all the algorithms the UX help that we could provide for the players.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if you look at our roadmap and so on, we will probably keep adding some modifications that you can do. So, for example, choose whether you wanted to have painted workers or not, and so on. And we'll see how far we can go with with those. Pretty much
That's so interesting. I've never seen. That's such a key part of tabletop gameplay is buying often overpriced minis and then painting them. And I'm like, you almost never see that in video games. I mean, there's a little bit of it in BattleTech and stuff, but like that whole idea of customizing my team and my units and then putting them on a board is never really realized in digital the way it is in physical.
We definitely want to try it out at some point. So, yeah.
Nice.
There should be there's like tabletop simulator on the team. There should be a mini painting simulator.
Honestly, there probably is. Like, I'm totally ignorant. There probably is like 3 already.
There's 3, and you have keys for 2 of them in your inbox.
It's entirely possible.
With that, I think it's time to start wrapping things up. Marchan and Adam, thank you so much for joining us. That was a lot of fun. This game is really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good
Really
work.
appreciate it.
And thank you, and shout out again to our friends to Asmodee for helping set this up. Thank you all for watching at home. If they've got more questions about how games like this get made, where can they ask them?
We have a Discord channel, and so this is one thing. I believe the Discord link should be on the main game page. Mm-hmm. There is also Steam forum.
Steam community page, yeah.
Yes, yeah, and also the Facebook page.
Right on. As I start wrapping up some things here, you have all been watching the Gamasutra Twitch channel. Thank you all for joining us today. We think this is a really cool game called Scythe. If you would like to check it out, it's now available on Steam in Early Access. If you click the follow button, if you're new to this channel, if you click that, you will be able to watch more of our conversations with game developers, because we do them pretty regularly. Tomorrow we're talking to the folks from the Banner Saga, which is definitely a game I am super looking forward to. That I'm going to spend like a couple hours this afternoon just trying out the Banner Saga 3 so we can play that tomorrow. Alex has this very jealous look on his face.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. And with that, thank you all very much, and have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I stopped playing the Banner Saga a while ago. It's a lot.